Now, sticking with those ugly protests across Sydney and Melbourne, not to forget, and there were protests in other regional towns and capital cities yesterday. Let's bring in Robert Gregory from the Australian Jewish Association. Robert, good to see you again. I presume you were at the event in Sydney last night in the convention centre where the Israeli president was. How did you feel about the fact that, you know, not even a kilometre away down the road outside Sydney Town Hall, you had these people, not 6 weeks after the Bondi massacre, protesting in the way they did?
I just can't believe we're seeing these images, that we're talking about these images. A former Australian of the Year, Labor MPs taking part in what can only be described as a hate fest. Hearing those intifada chants. I mean, any Jewish person, any person who knows world events knows the intifada was a period of suicide bombing, stabbing, shooting attacks against Jews, and that people would call to globalize it, to bring it here. I mean, we already saw Australia's own intifada at Bondi Beach, and the Jewish community is reeling. As you said, it's just 6 weeks after. The community is in shock. So to see those scenes, we saw, I noticed there was flags of the Islamic Republic of Iran being waved. This is a regime that's just carried out the massacre of tens of thousands of people. So you can't say these protesters were protesting for peace. They certainly weren't peaceful. And it's just shocking for the Jewish community and the whole city of Sydney.
What did you make of former Australian of the Year, Grace Tame, talking about intifada?
Shocked by her remarks. Look, she may have achieved a lot in other fields, but the role of Australian of the Year is a role that should be uniting people, bringing them together, not leaving minority groups fearful for their lives, that thinking that, you know, this prominent Australian is supporting attacks against them. So it's shocking. I personally think she should hand back the honour or should even potentially be stripped of it if she's not up to the job of uniting us as a country.
Robert, I saw that at the end of the function last night, the Israeli president, the police officer who took to the stage and asked you all to stay within the venue because he didn't want you to coincide with the exit from Town Hall of the protesters. That wasn't received particularly well. Explain the reaction there for me, if you can.
Well, the Jewish community has been feeling like police should have stepped up for the last couple of years. I think some of the scenes we saw last night, there'd be people in the Jewish community saying that now the police have stepped up. But what we saw on the 8th of October at the Sydney Opera House, those ugly scenes, since then, I think the community's felt that sometimes everyone else except the Jewish community is being taken care of. So when people heard that a protest that wasn't supposed to happen, that police didn't want to happen, that still went ahead, that because of that, now thousands of people doing the right thing were being confined to the building, I think there was a bit of anger that this was allowed to happen and that perhaps it should have been cleaned up even sooner because it was not a permitted protest.
The Prime Minister in Question Time today, Robert, said that we need to lower the temperature, and he was speaking to all Australians, I guess. Well, that's all well and good, but we've endured these protests ever since the day after October 7. Every weekend in all the cities around Australia, these people are out there waving Palestinian flags and, you know, carrying baby dolls with blood spattered over them. No one actually talks about the fact that what happened on October 7 was innocent Israelis were slaughtered by a Hamas terrorist group. How long is this going to go on for?
100%. What the Prime Minister's saying, it sounds right in words. We certainly do need to lower the temperature, but he's directing it at all the wrong places. We've seen from some of the Teals some disgusting comments. Some of them you just raised, Zali Steggall seeming to defend or not be shocked by the remarks we heard from Grace Tame calling for an intifada. We've also seen Sophie Scamps just yesterday calling for sanctions against Israel, the world's only Jewish state. So we do see a lot of people that are inflaming the tensions. Obviously the Greens, that goes without mention, and even some people within the Labor Party. So we had Labor MPs march yesterday in this horrible, I don't know what to call it, riot, protest, and they're not being punished, they're not being disciplined. So yes, tensions do need to be lowered, but I think the Prime Minister needs to look perhaps in his own backyard as to where these tensions are being inflamed from.
On a positive note, what has it meant to your community to have the President here?
It's meant a lot. knowing that someone on the other side of the world has cared enough about what happened and has come and shown concern. It's similar to what happened in Israel after October 7. Many world leaders, Joe Biden, the leaders of Britain, France, fortunately not Anthony Albanese, came to Israel to show support. So it's been important to see that, and it's strengthened the community. It's not the same as having a member of the government visit. As you said, the president of Israel has a symbolic role. He's similar to the Australian Governor General. So I think the community does want to see more engagement between the Israeli government and the Australian government. We've always had a great relationship, bilateral relationship. There's a lot Israel could do to help Australia in the areas of defence, in the areas of cyber. So I think it would be appropriate for the Australian government to invite someone from the Israeli government and perhaps try and repair that relationship, which has been in tatters ever since the election of the Albanese government.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if that ever happens. Robert Gregory, thank you very much for joining us.